everybody is doing well today. I wanted to take this time to really talk about what happened recently at the debate and see what's exactly going on. First of all, I'd like to give my hearts and condolences to the victims of Hurricane Helene. Do what you can to spread awareness and hopefully donate, be a helping hand. Be aware of other truths of what's going on, about why was it so intense, and make sure you donate to individuals who really could use it, and not to mention trustworthy. So it's very tragic what happened, and not to mention how they address and how they try to so-called help these victims, whether it's in Ohio or Hawaii, and their efforts just pretty much fall pretty dismal and short. I wanted to take this time to really talk about the debate, as you know, a little bit about what's going on. So it was a really good debate. I really like the fact that it was more civil compared to the presidential debate that happened with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. As you can see, it's a very, very important thing to talk about. Now, what I really liked about it was also how they got to a lot of the issues, although some issues they were really missing out. There were many issues that they just didn't talk about. Because remember, when it comes to housing, the real issue, yes, I understand that there are codes, particularly NIMBYs. I understand that there's large corporations that are buying up all those homes. I understand that there's federal lands. However, what's interesting to know is that the real root cause of it is our financial system. Remember, home prices were pretty low across the country after the financial crisis. The median home price here in Las Vegas was about like $120,000 at one point. But what happened was, of course, the same financial system continued. We didn't jail the banksters. We didn't hold people accountable. And again, this is what's really wrong with our country and our society. We live in a very double standard kind of a society that, when you think about it, we are a society where banksters, elites are held accountable. Certain class of groups are pretty much shielded. However, the problem is that we don't hold them accountable. And in addition, we forgot to break up the banks. We forgot to audit the Federal Reserve. We kept interest rates very, very low. And people talk about lower mortgage rates, but you can have high mortgage rates and have much lower home prices. This is one of the things that people don't really talk about. In addition, the fact that you had more and more builders consolidate, fewer competition, labor and lumber shortages, which all caused home prices to continue to escalate. These are one of the things that these candidates really just did not want to talk about. That's just a really sad and bitter truth. But I understand all these other issues really does make a difference. Now, what's very interesting is that the debate was very civil. We didn't have a situation where Donald Trump talked about, oh, they're eating pets and all this other claims that he's making. Now, the question is, it's not whether it's true. The question is that going to make yourself look good and help you really win the voters? And the problem is that I don't think it really did. Many argue, even though that they're supporting Donald Trump, the fact is that debate didn't really actually help him. But this debate, a CBS poll showed that actually J.D. Vance did better in the debate, believe it or not. And I think it will help his poll numbers. There's no question about it. Yeah, housing is certainly an issue. But then again, you got to understand that where Vice President Kamala Harris is from, believe it or not, housing costs are among the highest. The obvious reason, because it's tougher to build housing when you look at vertically or horizontally. This is why California has among the highest housing costs. So that's how Trump should have pointed the finger at her in the presidential debate. Because, yet again, it's also true here in Nevada, where you have about 85% of the land that is owned and controlled by the federal government. That obviously reduces the supply of land, which gives builders a chance to expand the supply of housing. Although even if we got rid of all federal lands, that does not mean that home prices are going to be like half the cost of what we have now. There's many factors that determine the equation of what's exactly going on. Now, I want to respond to Tim Walz because he talked about how, in Minnesota, we loosened our codes and regulations for infill, and then the price of housing went down. Now, that is actually true. The loosening of many of the density restrictions did help the Twin Cities. However, what he doesn't talk about was that in 2020, there was the George Floyd riots that happened not just in Minneapolis, but happened actually all over the world. And that caused a lot of people to move away from the inner cities and instead moved into the suburbs and actually in the rural areas. This is one of the reasons why people live in the suburbs and the rural areas, because they're tired of the politics, they're tired of the policies, the taxes, and so forth. He doesn't talk about that. Why? And that's how J.D. Vance could have debunked him, not to mention talked about his handling and how Minneapolis was led to burn during his reign. Think about it. But again, you have to understand that the debate moderators, how they give off the questions, how they debate the facts, all these things that they do, they just basically spin things around. They're so one-sided, and they don't bring these hard-hitting facts and questions to exactly what's going on. They missed out on the opportunity, unfortunately. The voters don't know, just like 4 years ago regarding Hunter Biden's laptop. These are one of the things you got to really understand. But there's a lot of issues that were not addressed. I think I'm glad that immigration was really an issue that was talked about. But remember, it's not just illegal immigrants, which we don't know how many people came in. It could be 15, 25 million, God knows what, plus the millions of the anchor babies that are going to be born. In addition, we've probably seen like millions that are gone because of the so-called safe and effective. I'm not going to get into further than that. You guys know what I'm talking about, the thing that was pushed about 3 years ago. I guess what J.D. Vance and Donald Trump should have talked about is more, well, how are these migrants going to improve our lives? You know, it's so funny because I have these urban planning channels that I'm subscribed to. And by the way, these urban planning channels should not be taking a very partisan approach. But what's very interesting is that they're supporting Kamala because she's supporting the removal of NIMBY. She's going to densify housing in the downtown, support transit funding, which they've had many years to do that. And they didn't do jack. But I talked about how more immigration is going to mean more demand for housing. It's going to cause more sprawl. You can't stop outward growth completely. It's just a fact. It's going to be difficult to do so. But more importantly is, how is that going to improve the lives of 300 plus million Americans? It doesn't. Wall Street, K Street lobbies for mass immigration because they get more customers, they get lower wages, more applicants, more voters for politicians who basically run on identity politics and get large donor money. That's a fact. So this is what they should have asked. They should have asked, how are these immigrants really benefiting the average person? They don't talk about those issues. How is it making our life, the guy down the street, significantly better? Why don't they talk about these issues? This is the bitter truth that these candidates need to start addressing. Now, I'm glad they brought up trade. I'm glad they brought up a whole list of other issues. I think these issues are definitely important. There's no question about it. We did see changes in manufacturing jobs in the 4 years when Donald Trump was president, and of course later on, because they did keep the tariffs on China. That's a fact. Keep this in mind. And not to mention, it takes years to obviously set up your business, build factories. Basically, the list goes on. This, of course, debunked the so-called economic experts, because we know a lot of these economic experts can be deeply, deeply biased. There's no question about it. But again, the polls show that immigration, border security. And by the way, immigration and border security, they're not all tied together, okay? And even when we have legal immigration, it has to work for Americans. Actually, believe it or not, the taboo truth, what they need to start talking about is how immigration is being pumped massively in Western countries, a double standard, and it's taboo for them to question it. That debunks the whole Native American argument. Think about it. That's what they really need to address. There's no question about it. Trump is leading when it comes to border security because border security is a safety issue considering you have drugs, cartels, all these other problems, human trafficking. The media really just doesn't want to cover. The fact is that the migrants entering the border has escalated as soon as Biden entered office. Not to mention, all this does that the other side have to bring up is democracy and January 6th. And look, I agree, there were some violent whatever during the Capitol. However, the media rarely talks about the riots that happened in 2020. And of course, there was rioting when Donald Trump won the election and he was about to be inaugurated. It's just such a double standard. Immigration, border security, economy, high cost of living, which was mainly a result of the massive spending and the supply chain disruptions, not to mention all these food plant outages that we saw several years ago. These are the main issues that's really behind, that's very concerning to voters. Now, can there be some new young female voters that came in because of the issue of abortion? Absolutely. But is that enough to overtake all the other people who have changed their voter registration and now see the other issues as more of a concern? That's a real interesting question because the voter registration data, especially here in this state, proves otherwise, okay? Obviously, I think a lot of you are going to go out to vote. We all know it's going to really make a huge difference. I wanted to just point out is, what exactly do I think about the predictions about what exactly is going to be going on? I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these races are going to turn out. I'll give you my worst case scenario prediction about the 2024 presidential election, the Electoral College map. Worst case scenario, or I can say, let's see here. You can also point out the scenario for Kamala, the best shot for her. I guess worst case for majority of my viewers, because I know who a lot of you are going to be supporting. Again, there's a lot of things that I don't like about either of the two candidates. Kamala's best case scenario, I don't think she's going to do as well as Joe Biden. I just really don't, to be honest with you. I just don't see that Joe Biden is really, I mean, you look at his approval rating, much of his presidency was under 40%. I just don't see Kamala is going to do as well as Joe Biden. Remember, Obama, who ran in 2012, again, he didn't do as well as 2008. He lost 5 million votes. Keep that in mind. And one of the main reasons is because he didn't maintain his campaign promises, hence why Bernie was popular in 2016. And in addition to the fact that was one of the reasons why Hillary lost, because they didn't maintain their promises. And just like Joe Biden, there was a trifecta. They didn't get many of their promises, higher minimum wage, public option. None of that stuff actually ever happened. All we got was just pretty much more of the same establishment. Interventions, mass immigration, essentially putting the priorities of Wall Street over the American people. You look at their campaign contributions. So I think the best case for Kamala Harris, I think Kamala is going to take the Rust Belt states, the swing Rust Belt states, as well as Nevada. And I have a good feeling that obviously there's going to be a very good chance that Trump's going to take Georgia and Arizona. Now, the best case scenario for Donald Trump, Trump will not only take all of the swing states, including Nevada. And by the way, I think Nevada is the least likely of all the swing states, the 7 swing states, to actually go for Donald Trump, because we know what a mess here is Nevada is. And I know there's a lot of polls that say that Trump is below 5 here in Clark County, and there's many polls that show that Trump is leading in Nevada. He's even in Washoe County. I know there's a lot of polls out there, but I'm not too optimistic about Nevada for the obvious reasons. And I know a lot of people will claim, well, Lombardo and Stavros Anthony won. Look, those candidates are not like the same Republicans that you'll find with Donald Trump. It's just not. Okay, now going back to Donald Trump's best case scenario, I think he's going to get all of the 7 swing states. And I think that Donald Trump will actually not only get those 7 states, but good chance he'll take Virginia, because some polls are looking pretty favorable. And I think he'll also take, believe it or not, New Hampshire. He'll have a good chance of taking Minnesota. And is there any other swing states that, he could possibly take? I mean, maybe New Mexico. I'm not sure about that. I mean, there's some that are predicting it's going to be an epic landslide. He may take New Jersey, New York, all those other states. I don't know about that. I just don't really see that. Possibly Colorado. It's very, very hard to say. But those are my best case scenarios for Donald Trump. Now, as far as Senate seats, I think there's a pretty good chance the Republicans are going to take Montana, Ohio, West Virginia. I don't know about Nevada, Arizona, and all the other swing states. I just don't see it. I just don't think Sam Brown's a good candidate. I know a lot of you are going to be voting for Sam Brown. There's a Sam Brown event coming with, I don't remember. Oh, yeah, John Kennedy very, very soon. And by the way, if you don't know who John Kennedy is, he ran and won Louisiana in 2016 against David Duke. I'm sure you know who David Duke is. I've actually, talked about many of the issues that David Duke talked about, because I'm telling you, it's a huge concern. And every passing year, seeing these demographic changes, it's becoming more and more true than ever. And you don't have to be a European like myself to believe what's going on. So, again, I don't really see that. Now, as far as Congress is concerned, I just don't see any of them flipping. I think Drew Johnson has a good chance. I think that John Lee has a lesser shot. I just don't see doing too well for Mark Robertson. Susie Lee's district covers this area. Now, remember, they did gerrymander once and for all. School board, I'm not too optimistic. By the way, if you don't know, I did purchase a lot of signs, doing a lot of attack ads against these crony politicians. I'll have a video about that very, very soon. Believe it or not, the company that actually did the signs, it's actually right behind this Gold Coast Hotel, further ahead. I was easy walking distance. Oh, there you have it, another Trump sign. You can see right here all these billboards that's going on. I do think a lot of parents are upset with what's happening at the CCUSD. I just don't see a lot of effective campaigning that's going on. County Commission, again, it's just such a dirty machine. I'm not really sure that April Becker will be able to flip that seat. I did interview the primary opponent who lost in the primary, which was, I can't remember what's his name on the top of my head. As far as, let's go down the line. Oh, yes, state legislature, last but not least. They did gerrymander the districts, keep that in mind. So I do think that one of the Senate seats in Washoe County is going to flip to Democrat, although let's keep in mind, though, that I don't think a lot of other seats will be flipped to Democrat here in Clark County because, as you know, Carrie Buck voted for the abortion bill in the last session. So I think she's going to do pretty good on that. And by the way, a lot of special interest groups who endorsed Democrats, they actually did endorse Carrie Buck. I do think there might be a chance that one of the Democrat seats may flip. Now, as far as the assembly is concerned, there's a lot of candidates that did raise a lot of money. A lot of organizations like CCEA and the Vegas Chamber of Commerce did endorse some of the purple assembly seats. So I do think a few are going to flip. There could be 5 of them that are going to be flipping, maybe up to 7, although I just don't see that the Democrats are going to have an ultra super majority. I just don't really see that, because if you look at the presidential election polls, if you see that Kamala is doing worse than Joe Biden did exactly from 4 years ago, I just don't see a lot of the Republicans losing a lot of the seats. So I don't see necessarily a Democrat supermajority, but then again, you guys all need to vote, and we need to fight these bills in the state legislature. So let me know what you guys think about what's going on. Please, if you're welcome to chat, just give me an update. I'm going to leave this phone live for another minute to let you know what you guys think exactly what's going on. So what exactly do you guys think about the election results? I'm going to have more videos soon. I'm going to have more flyers very, very soon. What do you guys think? Anybody wants to comment on exactly what's going on? Please share your thoughts below. Nice day today, although it's still quite on the hot side. You know, but still quite comfortable. Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting period of time right now. There's just no question about it. You know, I'm quite nervous to see what's going on. There's no question about it. So what do you guys think is going to happen as far as predictions is concerning? I just don't see Sam Brown as being a really strong candidate. It's kind of hard to believe why Sam Brown isn't doing so well in the poll compared to Cortez Masto. But anyway, man, Cortez Masto and essentially Jackie Rosen, I mean, they're just such con jobs. They're such tools. These people never had a meeting open to the public where they were willing to discuss the issues and meet everyday people. That's all they pander to, is their non-governmental organizations and their private events. It's absolutely disgusting to see what's going on. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Let me know what you guys think. See you.